Here on the Voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM. And our interview segments are brought to you by our friends at Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And we have on the phone with us from Indiana County's Cooperative Extension, Mr. Bob Pollock. He is on one line. You can call in on the other at 724-479-1160, and you can ask your questions to Bob this morning. We advise you to call right now. That line is open. So, Bob, one thing that I've been thinking about has been, of course, the dry conditions. Now, we've had some rainfall, but I don't think it was enough for anything to be lifted as far as drought watches or drought advisories are concerned. Has that status actually changed at all?
No, I don't believe it has. I think we did get a little bit of moisture, enough to green the grass up a little bit, but not enough to really remove any of that drought watch.
Okay, so, Bob, we have a caller on the line. Caller, what's your first name?
Carol.
Hi, Carol. Bob's on the line with you.
Yes, I have two problems. I get these little black ants in my kitchen. Is there anything I can do about that?
Yes,
they're
there's
real little,
things.
about the size of a fingernail.
Yeah, there's some very tiny ones that are fairly common to have that. They usually nest in the soil in most cases. So if you would look kind of on the outside of the house, in that area where you're seeing them, there may be a nest or two out there along the edge of the foundation or in a bed, and they're able to either go through the foundation, through the mortar joints, something like that, or where a pipe comes into the house to gain access. So depending on the situation there, sometimes they can come up through the basement floor if there's cracks in the floor. Sometimes we've got all kind of different types of construction, but sometimes we may have unfinished parts of the basement, or where the basement floor in older homes was a thinner, laid as a thinner thickness of concrete, so there can be cracks in the floor, and they can actually have their nest down in there and then make their way up through and into the kitchen. Those little tiny ones they'll look for any kind of little bits and crumbs and a little bit of moisture. They may be even seeking out moisture now because it is drier, so they can be, just on a hunt for food source. So you can put those
the other
little...
thing is, I think I also have like drain fly that come up through the drain. I also have those.
All right, yeah, and that oftentimes, and it just happens over time as organic materials are put down through the sink. You can get a little bit of, it's like gel, but it'll be organic matter that's trying to decompose, but that'll make a film down in the sink drain and then down in the pipes there. So probably the best way to deal with that is just to take that apart underneath the sink, so the trap, and just take those parts. They all thread together. They might be metal, it might be plastic, but occasionally it's good to just take that off, make sure that the trap's not building up in sediment as well, and then clean that. Of course, there's drain cleaner products that can aid in that process too if you can't take the plumbing apart. But you can just take that apart, clean it, run a rag through there. That'll get rid of that film, put it back together, and then that'll help solve the drain fly. Sometimes we'll call them moth flies, but they're little kind of very dark gray to black, fuzzy-looking moths. They're not very big, but they'll lay eggs in there. Yeah. So
okay. I mean, does it help to put boiling water down the drain?
It might, if the film, is thin enough. Still, oftentimes it takes some sort of action to just the fact that the the boiling water's going down there may not eliminate that film. It can kind of stick on there. So sometimes the drain cleaners, which has a little more, seems to eat away at it better, or just to get it cleaned out will really help to solve that. And that's just something that happens because there's, as we put things down the sink over time, those films just naturally build up on there. And then with the ants, you can put those little traps out inside, like the taro traps and things. Those tend to help with that because, and a lot of times those will have either a gel bait or a bait in there that they'll take as food back to the nest, and then that'll help reduce the numbers. Oftentimes it doesn't eliminate them, and then eventually they come back again. Really going, if you can find the nest, which can be a real challenge to do, but if you can find that and just treat the nest, then that will really solve the problem for a longer period of time.
Is there anything, someone had told us about the powder that you put on the outside. Does that help?
Yeah, that can help if you get it in the neighborhood of where they're traveling. They're going to need to come in contact with that. So yeah, there's both, there's materials that are both, can be put down as a powder and or mixed up and almost drenched on or sprayed on as a liquid along the foundation wall that will definitely take care of the ants. But again, we've got to get it in the right place so that when they come in contact with it, then it'll get on their body and have enough of a dose to kill them.
Okay, because I think we had got some perimeter insect killer, to put on the outside.
Yes. And then with it being as dry as it is, and along the foundation with the eliminated, sometimes if you have an overhang on the roof, it can be extremely dry right along the edge of the foundation. So it can be a little more difficult to have those materials be active for a long period of time because there's no moisture there to help in that process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for calling in. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and sometimes you can stir up the ground too, with a rake or go along areas and just stir up the soil or even stir up the mulch. A lot of times those nests will be pretty shallow. That can be another little way to help find where the nests are.
All right. Hey, thanks for calling in, ma'am, this morning. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I was taking a look, Bob, at some of those insects that they were talking about, the drain flies, and I'd never even heard of them until now, to tell you the truth. That just shows you how much I'm not into the agriculture scene, but I'm learning a lot. I mean, just taking a close-up look at these look like these can be a really big bother.
Yeah, they're more of a nuisance, but it's just a kind of a signal that, okay, we may have some more extra buildup in the sink or the drains that we need to clean out and flush out.
Okay, all right. We do have a free line here at 724-479-1160, so if you want to call in and talk with Bob Pollock this morning, you can certainly do that. And Bob, what are we looking forward to now? We were talking about this a couple weeks ago when I was back here behind the board here for Todd. But now we're really starting to get into the fall season. We're starting to see early apple crops popping up, and probably pumpkin crops are going to be starting to come in too.
Oh, yes, they definitely are.
So talk.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Started to see both of those. Of course, one's an edible, and unless you get pie pumpkins, mostly, a lot of the pumpkins are grown for ornamental purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those have been maturing, especially on the pumpkin side, have matured a little earlier than what we see on some years. And again, that goes back to that hot, warm summer that we had that pushed crops along, and growing degree days were advanced, that allowed some of those to mature, maybe before we wanted them to, but still, we just have to adapt to that. When they're ready, they're ready.
So
yeah,
we're
and
going to
then,
be seeing
and then the
those.
various varieties of apples are coming in, and really, we're getting in towards the end of September now and into October, so we're really getting into the heart of apple season, and when the majority of the varieties will be maturing and available.
Mm-hmm. And that's one season I'm looking forward to, because I do love a good bit of apples from the orchard there. But what are some other things that people should be keeping in mind? I have a feeling that people are going to start winding down and maybe start prepping for winter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're moving into shorter days and a little bit cooler nights, and so that triggers things to start maturing, especially annual flowers and things that you've been working with all summer and kept them blooming, and they're still blooming, but sometimes they can start to get a little raggy now, and then the cooler nights they'll slow down. So you'll be transitioning out of those and into some of the more fall flowers, the mums and things, which are also really available now to put those fall displays out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, good time to do that and clean out pots. It's good to so when you're cleaning out those summer flower pots and getting ready to store those for winter, it's good to. Sometimes people will just leave the soil in those and overwinter them and use that soil next year. Other times we'll take that out and put it on the compost pile or spread it around. And good to clean those pots out well, just in case there were some soil-borne diseases or something in there that can hang around on fragments of the potting soil. So to kind of scrub those out, and then you can actually use a mild Clorox solution to disinfect those.
Mm-hmm.
That way they're all ready to go. You can clean them up, store them for the winter, and then bring them out and they're ready to go in the spring.
All right. Bob Pollock of Indiana County Cooperative Extension, thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks for all those helpful tips.
You're welcome.
All right.
You're welcome.
All right.